They put me in a nursing home on Thanksgiving Day. I ate cold stuffing in silence, then transferred the $21.60 M Family Trust to someone who still calls me Grandma. They used to call me the Queen of Thanksgiving. For 30 years, that kitchen was mine. The scent of roasted turkey, sage, and cinnamon was as much a part of my identity as the wrinkles on my hands. Every cranberry sauce had a story. Every pie crust held a memory. I had this way of folding the napkins into little swans, something I learned from a cruise my late husband and I took back in '86. Back when he was alive and my children still called me Mom without a clenched jaw. But this year, everything changed. The night before Thanksgiving, I heard laughter in the kitchen. Real laughter. I had not heard that in years. Curious, I pushed my walker down the hallway, following the sound. I stopped when I saw her, my daughter-in-law Lindsay, dressed in heels and holding a wine glass, smiling like she owned the house. Around her were catering staff in black uniforms, carving boards, silver trays. One of them was basting a turkey I did not buy. Another prepped a pecan pie that was not mine. I stood there silently until Lindsay spotted me. In that moment, I realized this was not just a party I was excluded from. It was a life I was no longer invited to. She looked me up and down like I was a dust bunny that wandered in from the attic. Then she reached behind her, pulled something from a paper bag and handed it to me. A maid's uniform. Not even a good one. The cheap kind you get from a Halloween store clearance bin. "Here," she said, grinning like it was a joke. "Put this on?" I stared at her, unsure if I heard her right. "Excuse me?" Lindsay sipped her wine, still smiling. "What? You think you're in charge of Thanksgiving this year? Please. The last time you cooked, the turkey was dry enough to be used as drywall. We have actual guests coming, important people. Not the bingo crew from your nursing club?" I looked down at the uniform, my fingers trembled. "I am not the help," I said quietly. That made her laugh. Loud, cruel, belly deep. "Rights to the kitchen? My God, are you senile or just nostalgic? You're a maid without the paycheck, Mother, always have been. So either you clean the downstairs bathrooms like you're useful, or you get out of the way. That clear enough for you?" She left the uniform on the counter and walked off. I did not pick it up. Thanksgiving morning came with frost and silence. I woke up early, habit I suppose, but there was no flour dust on the counters, no pot simmering on the stove. My apron still hung behind the pantry door, untouched. I had not worn it since last year. By the time I came to the dining area, the place was already set. White linens, gold-rimmed plates, name cards in calligraphy. I noticed there was no card with my name on it. There was one that said, VIP guests, and another that said, children's table. I asked my son where I should sit. He did not look me in the eye. There's a seat in the kitchen, Mom. Lindsay thought it'd be better, for comfort. You know, easier access, less noise. I stood there, stunned. Am I not family? He adjusted his tie. Mom, please. Don't make this a thing. Lindsay worked really hard on this. I walked into the kitchen and found a small plastic table near the fridge, a single folding chair, paper napkin, disposable plate. I sat, alone. In that hollowness, I felt the years of love turn into years of exile. I was not just outside the room, I was outside the story. Once the author of these holidays, now demoted to a footnote no one would cite. From the main room, I heard laughter, champagne corks. Someone made a joke about senior moments, and the whole table roared. A server brought me a plate, turkey slices already cold, stuffing soggy, mashed potatoes stiff like plaster. I took one bite and choked it down with tap water. I could hear Lindsay telling a story about Italy, something about truffle hunting and five-star hotels. I remembered when my son was little, how he used to sneak extra rolls into his pocket, just in case I did not eat enough. Now he would not even glance at me. Halfway through the meal, I heard Lindsay's voice get louder. "We are finally closing on the house in Aspen," she said. "It'll be so peaceful. No more clutter." Someone asked what she meant. She laughed. "Let's just say the attic is finally getting cleared out." The room erupted in cruel laughter. I felt my hands go numb. I left my fork on the plate and quietly stood up. No one noticed. After dessert, Lindsay came into the kitchen. Her heels clicked against the tile like gunshots. She handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. She tilted her head, smug. "Paperwork. The nursing facility downtown. I took the liberty of signing you in." My mouth opened, but no words came. She leaned in close, whispered so no one else could hear. "They have soft beds, pills on time, and all the oxygen you could ever need. It is practically a luxury suite. Think of it as early retirement." My heart pounded. "I did not agree to this," she shrugged. "I did, and since you do not really contribute anything anymore, your consent is more of a formality, really." "Where is my son?" "He's busy hosting," she said, then smiled. "Besides, this was my idea. You should thank me." I held the envelope in my lap like it might bite me. "Get your things ready. The car will be here in 20 minutes. She walked away without looking back. I sat in that kitchen for exactly 12 minutes. I looked around at the home I had built. Every cabinet, every tile, every photo on the wall I had scrubbed, patched, paid for, loved. When the driver arrived, no one said goodbye. No hugs, no thank yous, no glances. I stepped into the car in silence. As we pulled away, Lindsay gave a 2-finger wave, like a queen dismissing her maid. "You will be fine," she called out. "They have milk, pills, and fresh air. Everything you need to wait out the clock." And just like that, I was gone. Like a plate scraped clean and dumped in the trash. They say time changes everything, but I have come to believe that money changes people faster. When my husband Harold and I built our company from the ground up, it was not for the riches. It was survival at first. Then it became legacy. We started small. 1 truck, 1 route, 1 dream. I was the one who signed the first loan. Harold had the mechanical skills, but it was my name, my credit, my signature on that dotted line when the bank manager looked us in the eye and said, "If this goes under, you lose your home." I cooked meals in the truck while Harold drove through the night. I sorted invoices by hand. I handled payroll, taxes, and drivers who called in sick or drunk. I was never just a wife. I was a builder, a partner, a co-founder. More than a wife. I was the builder, the partner, the one who signed the first loan when everyone else hesitated. And when the company finally turned a profit, we did not buy mansions or jets. We put money back into the business, into our kids' college funds, into savings. I sewed patches into the kids' jackets while we moved freight across state lines. So when my son Mark, our eldest, began showing interest in the business in his late 20s, I was thrilled. He had a sharp mind and Harold was slowing down. We thought maybe, just maybe, he would carry the name forward. He did more than carry it. He took it and turned it into a $1 million operation, and for a while I was proud. Then came Lindsay. She walked into our lives like a perfume you cannot ignore, strong, sweet, overwhelming. Mark met her at a conference in San Diego. She was twice divorced, well-dressed, and had a way of touching Mark's arm like she already owned it. The first time she came to dinner, she complimented the wine, the china, even the flower arrangement. Then she looked around the house and said, "Cute place." Very modest. Harold squeezed my hand under the table. I bit my tongue. A week later, Mark announced they were engaged. I pulled him aside. "Are you sure?" I asked, quietly. "I mean, are you sure she loves you, not your income statement?" Mark bristled. "You think she's a gold digger?" he snapped. "I think she's polished," I said carefully, "and I think you need to be certain." He stormed out. That night I found my place in the company meetings had been revoked. I was told the board had streamlined. The next month the accountant removed my name from the expense approvals. When I asked Mark why, he said, "Mom, it's time you enjoy retirement. You've done enough." Enough? The calluses on my hands had not even healed yet. Lindsay never forgot that I questioned her. From the moment they married, she set out to erase me like I was a stain on their luxury life. At family dinners, she spoke over me, changed the subject when I shared memories. When I brought my famous sweet potato casserole for Thanksgiving 2 years ago, she accidentally left it in the oven until it burned, then told everyone I had gone senile. She meant well, she laughed. Bless her heart. One evening she made shrimp linguine for Sunday dinner. The noodles were overcooked and the shrimp rubbery. I said, gently, maybe next time a splash of lemon might help balance it out. She did not speak for the rest of the night. As I stood to leave, I heard her whisper to Mark in the kitchen, "Who does she think she is? Gordon Ramsay's ghost? Woman probably cannot even chew. I pretended not to hear. The following week, my access card to the company's HQ was disabled. Mark texted me. Nothing personal. Lindsay says clients get confused when they see you walking around. Confused, that was the word. As if I were a ghost, hovering, irrelevant, inconvenient. What hurt the most was not Lindsay's barbs. It was how quickly Mark absorbed them. He started treating me like a relic, something you keep in the attic because it has sentimental value, but you never look at it, never speak to it, never acknowledge it in public. I became mom only in photos. In real life, I was her. I was grandma only when a babysitter canceled. I was the extra seat at the table, the background noise in family meetings. They stopped celebrating my birthday. At Christmas, they gave me a candle labeled Calm Your Mind. At New Year's, they suggested I try yoga for balance. 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 What they meant was silence. They wanted me present, but invisible, alive, but quiet, and I played along for longer than I should have. I told myself it was temporary, that Lindsay would grow up, that Mark would remember. But people who forget you when you are standing in front of them rarely remember you when you are gone. The moment I knew I was no longer seen as a mother, but a burden, was the day I heard Lindsay talking to a friend on the phone. She was walking past my room, thinking I was asleep. Honestly, she is just a walking wallet, she said, laughing. Old people think love is measured by casseroles and bedtime stories, but all they're good for is dying on time. The next day, I found my medication organizer in the trash. No explanation. That weekend, Mark told me they were planning a family trip to Aspen for just the 4 of them. I asked if I could come. Lindsay responded before he could. There will be snow, and altitude, and expectations. Maybe not ideal for someone your age. She was wearing diamond earrings I recognized. Ones I had given her for their anniversary. Ones Harold and I saved up for during our first expansion year. She kissed my cheek that night and said, "Get some rest, Mama. You look pale. No matter how much you give, some people will always measure you by how much you have left, and when they think you have nothing left to give, they do not mourn you. They replace you. They forgot who built the house, who signed the loan, who filled the fridge when all they saw was hunger." But I remembered. I remembered everything. The nursing home smelled like bleach and boiled peas. My room had 1 window, 1 bed, and 1 chair. The kind of setup that made it clear you were not expected to entertain visitors. The walls were bare, no family photos, no familiar furniture, no framed memories. Just beige wallpaper and the soft hum of a distant TV in someone else's room. They called it a suite. It felt like a cell. The nurse who showed me in did not smile much. She pointed to the call button, the bathroom, the meal times. I nodded like a good patient. My suitcase was placed at the foot of the bed, small, soft-sided, and half-zipped. No one helped unpack. No one asked what I needed. When she left, I stood in the silence, suddenly aware of how heavy loneliness can feel when it has walls to echo off. I opened the closet out of habit, expecting to see my clothes lined neatly, like at home. But what met my eyes was something I had not seen in years. A letter. Old, yellowed slightly at the edges, the envelope still bearing the handwriting I would recognize anywhere. Emeka. He was a child when we first connected. I sponsored him through a charitable program, $40.00 a month, and letters mostly. He was 11, living in a rural village in Nigeria. His first letter was all crooked lines and questions. Is snow real? What is the color of silence? Do you eat cake every day? I answered every one. We kept writing even after the program ended. I kept his drawings in a box under my bed, and every Christmas he sent a photo, always smiling, always growing. When he got into university in the U.S., he sent me a typed letter. "Grandma, your faith got me here. I will make you proud." I had not heard from him in over a year. But here, in this cold, empty room, his letter waited for me. With trembling hands, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened it. "Dear Grandma, if you are reading this, I hope it means you are still somewhere safe, somewhere peaceful. I miss our letters. I still read them. When I feel lost, I reread your words and remember the strength of your voice. I am in my final year at Harvard Law. I will graduate this spring. I got here because someone believed in me when I was just a scribble in the margins of the world. That someone is you. I love you, Emeka." Tears blurred the ink. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, I felt something other than shame or defeat. I felt remembered. I reached for the tablet the nurse had left on the nightstand and typed in his email address. It was still the same. Within minutes, a reply came. A video call request. I pressed accept, and there he was. Emeka, now a grown man. His hair short and neat, glasses perched on his nose, a bookshelf behind him, stacked with thick volumes of law and justice. His face froze, then crumpled. "Grandma!" His voice cracked. I smiled through my tears. "Yes, baby, it's me." He wiped his eyes with the sleeve of his sweatshirt. You look smaller," I laughed softly. "That's what betrayal does. It shrinks you." He shook his head. "No, you are still the strongest woman I know." I told him everything. The Thanksgiving, the envelope, the laughter, the car ride. I tried to be calm, to sound wise, but by the end my hands were trembling again. Emeka leaned in closer to the camera. "They put you in a home?" "Yes." "No discussion? No kindness?" He exhaled sharply, jaw tightening. "They do not deserve your silence." I shrugged. "They never asked for my voice." He paused, then sat up straighter. "Grandma, listen to me. I know I am just a student, but I interned last summer at Franklin and Bates. Do you remember them?" I nodded. "I do. Linda used to work there. She was in my Bible group." "Exactly. I was her mentee. I have been studying trust law, inheritance structures, and elder abuse statutes. This is not just morally wrong, it might be criminal." I blinked. "I am not trying to sue anyone. I am not talking about revenge. I am talking about protecting your rights." He looked directly at the screen. "If you need me, Grandma, I will defend you like I would my own mother. I owe you everything. You are not alone in this. Not ever." I could not speak. Somewhere deep inside me, a small ember stirred, something I thought had gone cold. Not rage, not vengeance, but the slow-blooming recognition of my own worth. He saw me. In a world that had made me invisible, Emeka still called me Grandma. And that was the beginning of everything. Before Harold passed, he called me into his office. He was never a sentimental man, more of the type to show his love in actions, not words. But that day, he reached across his desk, took my hand in both of his, and said, "When I go, I want to make sure you're protected, not just from the world, but from the people who say they love you." At the time, I thought it was grief talking, or fear, but Harold had always been the more pragmatic one in our marriage. While I raised the children and cooked dinners and paid the bills, he built legal fences around everything we had built, fences that could only be unlocked by trust and integrity. What I did not know then was that he had added something extra to our estate plan, something few people ever consider. A clause buried in the final pages of the irrevocable family trust. The moral clause. I discovered it after Emeka's call, when I could no longer sleep in that soulless room in the nursing home. I contacted our old attorney, James Whitlow, who still practiced in Reno. I asked him if he could retrieve the documents Harold and I signed all those years ago. He remembered Harold well, respected him deeply. A few days later, James arrived at the nursing home. He brought copies of everything. I sat with him in the common area, the television playing muted soap operas behind us. He slid the thick packet of papers toward me and flipped to a section marked with a red tab, Clause 14C. Transfer of beneficiary status due to breach of ethical and familial duty. It was written in that cold, lawyerly language, dense, precise, but I understood it. It said in no uncertain terms that if any primary heir displayed cruelty, neglect, exploitation, or abuse, physical, emotional, or financial, toward the trustor, the trust would immediately revoke their beneficiary status and transfer assets to the secondary grantee named within. That grantee? A line written in Harold's tidy pen, to be named at discretion of surviving trustor in the event of moral failure by heir. Me. I was the surviving trustor. I had the power to reassign the $21,600,000 0 cents family trust, not based on bloodline, but on behavior. James looked at me, one brow raised. You understand what this means? I nodded slowly. It means they never read to the end. He smiled faintly. Most people don't. And so I got to work. With Emeka's help and James's guidance, we began collecting proof, because legality, unlike family dinners, required evidence. The first item we gathered was from the front door of the house that used to be mine. Lindsay had installed a smart doorbell camera years ago, more for aesthetics than safety. What she forgot was that it stored video and audio. Even after I was gone, Emeka accessed the footage using a password I still had saved. We reviewed it frame by frame. There I was, walking out of the house on Thanksgiving, small and silent. And there was Lindsay, leaning into the camera just after I left, laughing with her friend on speakerphone. Finally got rid of the old witch, she said. Hoo-hoo, Hawaii, here I come. It was clear. It was cruel. It was damning. The second item was even more personal, a screenshot Emeka found on an old iCloud account tied to Mark's tablet. An account they never thought I had access to. It was a group text between Lindsay and two of her friends. One of the messages read, "She's just a wallet with a heartbeat. Not for long, though. I upped her meds this week. Fingers crossed." I could hardly breathe reading it. Was it a joke? A threat? A confession? It did not matter. It was enough. The third item came from my doctor, Dr. Hadley. I had seen her every quarter for 5 years. She ran full cognitive tests each visit, ever since I turned 70. Dr. Hadley provided a notarized statement confirming that I was of sound mind and body, that I was lucid, stable, and fully capable of making legal and financial decisions. I was not senile. I was not confused. I was betrayed. That night, I stared at the 3 pieces of evidence laid out in front of me like puzzle pieces to a picture. No one thought I would finish. They had underestimated me because I was quiet, because I was old, because I did not scream when they shoved me out the door. But I remembered Harold's words. I remembered every signature, and now I remembered who I had become. The next morning, James filed the paperwork to invoke Clause 14C. I signed the necessary affidavits, submitted the video, the texts, the doctor's letter. Given the irrevocable nature of the trust and the clear moral violation backed by documented evidence, the reassignment process was not only swift, it was bulletproof. Within 72 hours, the trust had been reassigned. Lindsay and Mark were no longer heirs. They had been replaced by someone who still called me Grandma, and they had no idea. Not yet. The pen felt heavier than it should have, like it carried the weight of 30 years of silence. My hand trembled, not from age, but from the gravity of what I was about to do. The signature line on the final page waited for me, crisp and bold, as if daring me to reclaim what had been mine all along. And so I signed. 3 strokes, first name, last name, done. Just like that, the $21,600,000 0 cents family trust no longer belonged to my son Mark or his wife Lindsay. It now belonged to Emeka, a young man with no blood ties to me, but more loyalty and love than anyone who shared my DNA. James looked up from the document, his voice calm. "That's it. It's official." I nodded, trying not to let emotion break through. Send the notifications. That afternoon, the storm began. The first ripple came from the bank. An automated message was sent to the family's financial advisor, then to Mark's email. Notice of beneficiary change, effective immediately. Within an hour, access to all associated accounts was suspended. Checking, savings, business credit lines. Everything frozen. The trust no longer recognized Mark as the rightful beneficiary, and since the business accounts were structured under the family trust umbrella, the bank was legally required to freeze them, pending reassignment of control. Mark called me 5 times in the span of 2 hours. I did not answer. Then came the message from Lindsay, furious and panicked. "What the hell did you do? Our accounts are frozen. I have vendors waiting. I have payroll to make." I let it sit, unread. The second wave arrived that evening. The house. The family estate, 5,800 square feet in Reno's wealthiest neighborhood, had also been held in the trust. Legally, that meant I had the authority to revoke residential rights from any occupant deemed in violation of the clause. And I did. The notice arrived by courier. Effective immediately, Mark and Lindsay were to vacate the premises within 10 business days or face legal eviction. I made sure the letter was formal but not cruel. No insults, no threats, just truth, dressed in the sharp suit of legality. I imagined Lindsay opening the envelope with her perfectly manicured hands, her wine glass trembling. I imagined Mark pacing the marble kitchen I had helped fund, trying to make sense of what was happening, how the woman they had dismissed as irrelevant had outmaneuvered them all. But I did not smile. I did not laugh. This was not revenge. This was restoration. The next morning, Emeka called me. His voice shook with disbelief. "Grandma, are you sure?" I replied. "You've never asked for anything. You've only ever given me your respect." He was silent for a long time. Then he whispered, "Thank you. I will honor this. Every dollar, every deed, I will make you proud. You already have," I said. I looked out the window of the nursing home, at the brittle trees, the pale sky. Everything felt sharper now, clearer. For years I had been told I was old-fashioned, irrelevant, delusional. But those who said it had never read to the end of the contract. They never looked past the surface of the woman who served them meals and raised their children and sacrificed her youth. They thought I was just a shadow with a checkbook. But I knew my worth. And now, so did they. Later that day I received a voicemail from Mark. His voice was frantic, cracking with disbelief. "Mom, you cannot be serious. You gave everything to that kid? That outsider? What about us? What about your family?" Family. It was always the word they threw around when they wanted something. But family is not just blood. It is behavior. It is loyalty. It is memory. Emeka remembered me. They did not. I deleted the voicemail. The final step was notifying the board of the company. The board had always seen me as Harold's widow, a ceremonial presence, but with the trust reassigned, I was now the legal authority behind every asset, every decision, every name on the payroll. I sent a short email. "There will be new leadership, details forthcoming." Mark was removed from his position as CEO by end of week. In the official statement, I wrote just one sentence. "I am not taking anything from anyone. I am only reclaiming what was built with love and giving it to someone who remembers what love looks like." No further explanation, no press release, just silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any scream. And as the dust settled, as the panic calls turned into threats and then silence, I sat back and breathed, for the first time in years, deeply. My name was no longer just attached to bills, to complaints, to whispered curses at dinner tables. It was now attached to justice, and to Emeka. "My grandson," I told the nurse when she asked who he was, "just graduated Harvard Law with honors, and unlike the rest, he never forgot to call me Grandma." It did not take long before the silence broke. The morning after Mark received the eviction notice and the trust reassignment was finalized, the phone rang, non-stop. I let it. I wanted them to sit in the silence they had left me in. Then came the storm. Lindsay was the first to snap. She left a voicemail so full of venom it could have burned through steel. "You think this is justice? You bitter old witch, you've lost your mind. That little third-world scam artist tricked you. You gave him our money. He is not even family. He is a con man, a nobody." She paused, then hissed the words that stung, even if I refused to let them land. "You are not Grandma. You are just a dried-up wallet with a signature." The message ended with the sound of something breaking, glass maybe, or a vase. Later that day, Mark showed up at the nursing home. He did not ask permission. He barged into the front lobby like a hurricane in tailored slacks, and when the staff tried to stop him, he shoved past with a growl. He found me in the library, seated by the window, reading. He did not say hello. "You really did it," he spat, eyes wild. "You gave everything to that orphan." "He is not an orphan," I said calmly, "and he is not that. His name is Emeka, and yes, I did." Mark's face twisted in disbelief. "You gave him my legacy?" I looked him in the eye for the first time in months. You lost it the moment you stopped seeing me as your mother." He slammed his fist down, sending books tumbling like startled birds. "I am your son. I am your blood. That should mean something." "It should," I said, "but blood without respect is just biology." That was when he snapped. He slammed his fist onto the bookshelf, knocking over a framed photo of my wedding. A nurse rushed in as the frame shattered. "You're senile," he screamed. "You're being manipulated. You think that little immigrant cares about you. He just wants the money." I stood up slowly, my knees stiff but my spine straight. "Don't you dare call him that," I said, my voice low. "He is more family to me than you have been in years." There was a silence, not from shame, but from disbelief. Because to them, love without blood was betrayal. But to me, blood without love was nothing. "You'll regret this," he shouted. "We'll take you to court. We'll get everything back. This isn't over." And then he left, slamming the door so hard it cracked the glass on the nearby framed painting. Within a week, the lawsuit came. Filed under incapacity and undue influence, it claimed I had been mentally manipulated, coerced by a younger man for financial gain. That I was no longer of sound mind. That I had been preyed upon by someone unrelated and opportunistic. They even tried to bring up my age as a weakness, that I was fragile, that I had memory issues. Lindsay went on local radio, painting me as the poor, confused grandmother, tricked out of her estate by a cunning law student. She cried on air. "She used to be kind," she said. "We never wanted her gone. We just wanted her safe." I wanted to scream, but I did not. Instead, I handed the entire case to Emeka and the team of attorneys he had gathered from his law school mentors and my old friend Linda's firm. They filed a countersuit for defamation, elder financial abuse, and emotional neglect. Every text, every video, every voicemail, every doctor's report confirming my lucidity, every clause of the irrevocable trust. It was all submitted, and when Lindsay realized that her own words, "She's just a wallet with a heartbeat," had been recovered from the cloud, she went quiet. Mark's rage turned to desperation. He called again, voice broken now. "Mom, please?" "You raised me." "I did," I said. "And then you buried me while I was still breathing?" he cried. But I did not. Because sometimes grief must be earned. And so we went to court, not because I wanted revenge, not because I wanted to humiliate them, but because they needed to be reminded love has conditions, and so does money. The courtroom was cold, wood-paneled, quiet, but the truth was loud, echoing in every exhibit, every affidavit, every broken promise. They had mistaken my silence for weakness, but I was never weak. I was just waiting for the right moment to be heard. Now, I was not just heard, I was remembered. I never imagined my life would end up in a courtroom, flanked by attorneys, dissected by legal jargon, and scrutinized by strangers. I always thought justice was something quiet, slow, something personal. I did not realize how loud it could be, how sharp. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Polished wood, stale air, a judge with tired eyes behind horn-rimmed glasses. Mark and Lindsay sat to the left, flanked by their legal team, well-dressed, confident, prepared for war. They did not look at me. Not once. On my side, Emeka sat in a crisp navy suit, papers organized, hands steady. He looked nothing like the 11-year-old boy who once asked me if snow was real. And yet, in his eyes, I saw the same fierce loyalty I had seen in his first letter. He rose when the judge called the case. "Your Honor," he began, "this case is not about money. It is about respect, about memory, about the dignity of those who are too often discarded when they are no longer useful." The judge adjusted his glasses, nodded. Emeka continued, "My client, Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, is of sound mind. That will be established medically, legally, and irrefutably. But more importantly, we will show that her decision to reassign her trust was not born out of confusion, but out of clarity." He gestured to the projector screen set up beside the bench. "Exhibit A," he said. "Footage from a smart doorbell camera on Thanksgiving Day." The video played. Lindsay, smirking, holding a phone to her ear. "Finally got rid of the old witch. Hahu Hawaii, here I come." There was a ripple in the courtroom. The judge frowned. "Exhibit B," Emeka said, clicking to the next slide, a screenshot of a group chat. Lindsay's message. She's just a wallet with a heartbeat. Not for long, though. I upped her meds this week. Fingers crossed. Gasps. The judge looked visibly disturbed now. Exhibit C, Emeka continued, pulling out a thick file. Signed, notarized medical documentation from Dr. Margaret Hadley, confirming that Mrs. Whitmore possesses full cognitive function, memory retention, and mental clarity. He handed the documents to the bailiff. Then he took a deep breath and reached into his briefcase. Exhibit D, he said more quietly, is not legal, but it is powerful. He unfolded a letter, aged, creased, written in my handwriting. This is a letter Mrs. Whitmore wrote to me when I was 13. At the time, I was living in a one-room home in Nigeria. I was scared, hungry, unsure of my place in the world. She believed in me. She sent this letter with a single sentence that I never forgot. He held it up and read aloud, "If one day you ever bring this letter to court, it means justice has finally come home." The room fell silent. Even the air stopped moving. The judge leaned back, eyes narrowing toward Mark and Lindsay. They shifted uncomfortably. The next half hour passed in legal language, reviewing signatures, verifying documentation, confirming timestamps. They tried to argue I had been manipulated, that I was not myself. But every claim unraveled under the weight of truth. The judge cleared his throat. "I have seen elder exploitation cases before. I have seen manipulation, coercion, confusion. This is not one of those cases. What I see here is a woman of full mind, betrayed not by strangers, but by her own blood." He looked at Mark. "Your mother raised you, built your company, held your home together, and you discarded her the moment it was convenient." He turned to Lindsay. "And you, your own words will haunt you longer than this verdict ever will." He picked up his gavel. "I hereby affirm the reassignment of the Whitmore Family Trust under Clause 14C. All rights of inheritance previously designated to Mark Whitmore and Lindsay Whitmore are revoked, effective immediately." Bang! That sound echoed in my chest like a song I had waited a lifetime to hear. As the judge stood to exit, he paused, looked back at me. "This is not dementia," he said quietly. "This is memory with a spine. This is what happens when wisdom stops whispering and starts writing things down." And just like that, it was done. They left the courtroom in silence. No rage, no more threats. Just two people who had finally seen themselves for who they were in the mirror of the law. Emeka turned to me, eyes glassy. "You were never weak," he said. I squeezed his hand. I was never alone. Because in the end, I did not raise my voice. But the paper did. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Maybe it was the months away. Maybe it was age or memory playing tricks on me. Or maybe, when you take the poison out of a place, what's left finally breathes again. The gates opened slowly. Emeka sat beside me in the car, quiet, letting me take it in. The lawn had been trimmed. The walkway was clean. But it was the front door that brought tears to my eyes. Where the old brass plaque used to say the Whitmore residence, a new wooden sign had been placed, freshly painted in soft cream and gold. "Grandma House. For those who still say thank you." I covered my mouth. Emeka smiled. "I figured if they're going to call you Grandma, they might as well say it with love." He took my hand as we walked up the steps. Every creak of the floorboards under my feet felt like a heartbeat returning. Every scent, lemon polish, a trace of lavender, felt like home being rewoven, thread by thread. But it was not truly home. Not yet. Not until I removed the ghosts. We walked into the hallway, where the family portraits had once lined the walls, stiff poses, plastic smiles, the illusion of unity. I stood before the first one. Mark, age 7, sitting on my lap in the old rocking chair. I remembered the day we took it. He had just skinned his knee. I held him until he stopped crying. He would not even look at me now. I reached up, lifted the frame off the hook, and set it on the floor. Then the next, and the next. Every photo, every reminder of the people who had smiled for the camera but scorned me when it mattered, one by one I removed them. We carried them out back to the fire pit Harold built with his bare hands. Emeka helped me light the flame. Each photo burned like a lie unraveling. Not out of hate, but liberation. I said nothing. I did not need to. The fire spoke for me. Glass cracked, wood blackened, and memories turned to smoke, not to forget them but to release them, to send them away, no longer chained to the walls of the home I built. When the flames died down, I turned to Emeka. Come inside, baby. It's time. Back in the hallway, I took one frame from my small suitcase. A photo of just the two of us. Me in my Sunday dress, Emeka in his graduation gown, grinning with his Harvard diploma clutched in his hands. I hung it where the old family centerpiece once sat. Nothing else. Just that. Just us. He watched me from the hallway. "Grandma," he said softly, "are you okay?" I nodded. "You know what the difference is between you and them?" I asked, my voice steady. He waited. "They lost their inheritance the moment they forgot how to say thank you." I turned, looking at him, full and proud. "And you? You only ever said 2 words to me, and because of that you earned everything." He did not speak. He just walked forward, wrapped his arms around me, and held me like family should. I stood there in that embrace, in the silence of a home reclaimed, a legacy restored. No more whispers behind my back, no more biting words at dinner, no more being asked to sit in the kitchen. This was my house, and in this house, no one called me a burden, no one called me a maid. In this house, there was only one name that mattered: Grandma. Thank you, dear listener, for sitting with me through this story, not just to hear what happened, but to understand what it meant, because this wasn't just about inheritance or money. It was about memory, about the kind of respect that cannot be bought, but must be earned and remembered. Some people lose everything the moment they forget to say thank you, and some people gain the world just by saying, Grandma. If this story touched something deep in you, if you've ever been underestimated, overlooked, or quietly strong when no one was watching, then you belong here, with me. Subscribe to Grandma True Stories, where truth doesn't need to scream to be heard, wisdom doesn't shout, it remembers. And revenge? Well, revenge has no expiration date.